Hello, Wired fam. Hope everybody's doing good today. Good this evening. Hope everybody's doing well. I tried to say well, came out good, good. What's going on? Hope everybody's doing good. Hope you're having a good week since last week. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Got some good stuff to talk about. I'm looking forward to because it's kind of right up my alley, right? So, one thing that I really thoroughly enjoy is teaching. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy talking about, techniques and patterns and finding fish and being successful while in the water. So everything we're going to talk about tonight kind of plays right down that alley. It's a passion of mine to help you guys be more successful on the water. And not everybody has a lot of time to go fishing, right? So to be as successful as you can be when you have time to go fish. So we're going to talk about some things tonight we're going to talk about adjusting, and we're going to talk about, just patterns in general, patterns of crappie, and kind of how those fish set up and, adapting to the way that those fish set up. So we've got a lot of things to talk about tonight, some really good stuff. We're going to talk about the ACC Crappie Cove Big Crappie Bash coming up April the 27th on Watch Bar. We're going to hit on that again tonight. If you have not signed up for that event, you need to get signed up for it. You need to get that taken care of before you lose a lot of spots, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But just like I said, going to talk about, Douglas tournament, and that plays a big role in kind of what tonight is about and what we're going to talk about tonight. So, I really want to go kind of through our tournament at Douglas and kind of talk about that a little bit, kind of tell you what happened, what transpired throughout that event, and kind of how that event went. So some of you have probably already watched the video that dropped, so you kind of know a little bit about it already. But the mind of Matt, right? The mind of Wired. So I'm going to share my mindset with you guys throughout that entire kind of scenario and that entire tournament, pre-fishing, fishing, and through even the end of the tournament. Okay. So a lot of good stuff there that we're going to talk about, and that all plays into kind of adapting and adjusting. Again, that played a huge role in tonight's discussion. And then we've got some other things to talk about as well. So if you don't care, when you get on, drop me a hello. Let me know where you're from. I always like to say hello back to you guys. I always like to see where we're reaching out to. And I always like to be able to, interact with you guys, if you will. And if you have any questions throughout the live, please, please, please drop them in the comment section. There's no bad question. There's no dumb question. If you have a question, don't know what the question is, or don't even know how to say it, just ask it. It's fine. No worries. I would love to hear from you guys on what y'all's feedback is as far as if you have any questions that I can help answer. Okay. And that question that you ask, somebody else may not want to ask, and you may help somebody else as well. So if you have questions or anything comes up during the live that you may not understand, ask and I will answer you. Okay. Let's see who all's on tonight. TJ Fishing, hello, what's going on? Daryl Crider, good evening from Whitwell, Tennessee. Jeff, hi, Matt, great video, Douglas Lake tournament. Why did you decide against planer boards? That's a very good question. We're going to get to that here in a little bit, okay? Ronnie Harris, good evening, Matt, from Carrollton, Georgia. What's going on? Jimmy Pratt, hello. What's going on, Jimmy? Jimmy in the house. Virgil McMurray, hello, Matt. What's going on, Virgil? Jonathan Hunt, hello, Matt, B Springs, Kentucky. Hello, James Williams. Crappie Kev, what's going on? Rich Smart, hello. Hello, heading to Grenada tomorrow, hoping for a 3-pounder. Well, good luck with it, George. I hope you catch multiple 3-pounders. Hope you catch a 4-pounder, buddy. Mike from Kentucky, what's going on? Ronald Dales, good evening, Matt. Spring, I think that's supposed to be spring, is starting here in Asheboro, North Carolina. Nathan Wood, what's going on from Wabash, Indiana? What's going on? What's up, everyone? There is still crappie in Douglas, looks like. Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, too. Jeffrey Smith, what's going on? Good evening, Matt and Wired fam. Do you all use glow jig heads? Any? Do you think they make a difference sometimes? I personally don't use glow jig heads. Most all of my jig heads are chartreuse or unpainted. I will show you a jig head tonight that I used on Douglas that I do feel like made a difference. It is a Lightwire Hooks jig head right here over my shoulder, Mr. Lightwire Hooks, Mr. Curtis Hobbs. I'll show you that jig head here in a little bit. But I do believe it made a difference. And they typically do in the situation that I got, or the situation that we got dealt. So they generally make a big difference. I'll show you those here in a little bit. Curtis is going to probably get an order or two for them because I typically don't show people this jig head. This is kind of a secret jig head of mine that I don't typically show a whole lot of people. But I'm going to show you guys tonight because I don't believe in keeping too many secrets. It's just a jig head. It's not a big deal. So I'm going to show that to you guys here in a little bit. And we'll go through my setup, kind of everything with the tournament here in just a little while, okay? Paul, what's going on from Chattanooga? Brad Cook, congratulations on the win from Kansas. Thank you very much. Congratulations to the weight winner. Alex, yes, we're going to give the weight winner from last week here in just a little bit as well. Alex Burnett, hey, Matt, congratulations. Doug Lake win. Telco was a blast this weekend. I appreciate you letting me know where to start. You're very welcome, Alex. Rich Smart, Idaho, what's going on? Hooked on Crappie, hello, hello. Dave Williams, hi, hello. How are you, Dave? Hope you're doing well. Rich Smart, hey, Hooked. Let's see. Barry Wallace, watching from Robbinsville, North Carolina. Congrats on Doug's Lake win. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Hello from Coreyton. I'm here tonight to defend myself against any of Ray Pratt's comments about me. What's going on, Josh? Better be worried about Joel's comments about you. All right, what's up, old school and everyone? Hope everyone is doing good. What's going on, Joel? Mr. Joel Nash in the house. Sunbright, Tennessee, saw you at Telco a few weeks ago. You were coming out as I was going in. Looked like you had a good trip out. Yeah, we probably did. It was probably a guide trip. You should have come over and said hello. Guys, if y'all see me out on the lake, there is nothing too important for you guys to come over and say hello. Okay. If you guys see me out on the lake, please, please, please come over and say hello. I don't care if it's a tournament. I don't care if it's a guide trip. I don't care if it's fun fishing. I don't care what it is. There's nothing too important for me to tell you guys hello. Come over, say hey, watch the show, watch the channel, whatever. I typically always have decals in the boat. I'll hook you up, come over and say hi. I love saying hi to you guys. I mean, that's what I do this for, is for you all. So if you guys see me on the lake or see me at Walmart or see me at, the gas station or whatever, please feel free. Come over, say hey. I do not get upset about it. I won't cuss you down. I won't smack you around. I'll say hello. And honestly, I mean, if I'm running late somewhere, I'll tell you hi. What's going on? Thanks for watching. I'm running a little behind. I got to run. But, as always, thanks for watching. I don't mind. I'll take the time to tell you guys hello. Come over and say hey. Let's see. Mike from North Augusta, South Carolina. What's going on? Billy Noble. Hello, Wired family, Dallas, Texas. What's going on? All right. So real quick, ACC Crappie Sticks, Big Crappie Bash, April 27th, Watts Bar Lake. Listen. If you're not registered for that event, okay, it is a Friday, $150 entry fee. The $150 entry fee gets you dinner on Friday night, which is served by Terrace View Marina. It is catered, okay, free of charge. That gets you breakfast in the morning from Terrace View Marina. That gets you the 8-hour tournament where you can win one big fish weighed per hour. You can weigh one fish per hour. If you win an hour with the biggest fish, you win $1,500. Okay. And then if you win the biggest fish of the tournament, you win $5,000 on top of the $1,500 you already won. So one fish could win you $6,500. Okay. So come out. You can win multiple hours. You could win 2 hours and the biggest fish of the tournament, end up with $8,000. I mean, come fish that event. If you're not registered, you need to call and register. We launch and blast off by order of registration. So if you wait till the last minute to register for that tournament, you're going to be way up there in the hundreds because we're expecting hundreds of boats this year. We had 83 last year. We know we're going to hit 100 this year. We're already over halfway there. We still have 2 months to register, okay? We're going to hit 100, so make sure you register for that tournament. If you don't, and you're up there in that 80 or 90 or 100 range, when we send you out that morning, first of all, you're going to be blasting around trying to get to your spot. There may be somebody sitting on your first spot. There may be somebody on your second spot. There may be somebody on your third spot. You don't know. There's going to be a lot of boats on Watts Bar Lake for that Big Crappie Bash. So you can go to ACC Crappie Sticks. You can look up the Big Crappie Bash there. All over Facebook, you can type in ACC Big Crappie Bash in the search bar. You can pull up the flyer for that event. There is a new flyer coming out because the pots have went up. It was $12.50 an hour and $2,500. Now it's $1,500 an hour and $5,000, guys. $5,000 for the biggest fish of the tournament. So make sure if you want to register for that, you call Crappie Cove in Maryville, Tennessee. You can Google that. You can look them up on Facebook. You can look, Crappie Cove in Maryville, Tennessee. That is inside Gunny's Firearms. So if you want, Google those, call Misty, and get registered for that event. It's only $150 entry fee. And they feed you again. Terrace View feeds you again, guys, at the end of the tournament when we're all sitting there doing the awards. So there's plenty of food to go around, okay? You know what I'm saying? You're going to get fed 3 times, and you're going to get to fish in the tournament and be around a lot of cool dudes, all right, and get the chance to win a bunch of money by catching a fish. It's just fun. That's all it is. It's just fun. So, there'll be a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people in the industry down there that week up to the tournament. We'll all be down there kind of shooting, filming, doing different things at Terrace View, so you can come down there and hang out with us. But it's just a lot of fun. It's a fun tournament and a fun thing to do. So if you've not registered for that, the ACC Crappie Cove Big Crappie Bash on Watts Bar Lake, April 27th. Get registered. It's $150, okay? Call Crappie Cove in Maryville, Tennessee, inside Gunny's Firearms, and get registered. Call Misty, okay? Do you have to weigh in hourly? Very good question. No, you do not have to weigh in hourly. You only weigh in if you catch a big fish. So let's say we go out, we launch, we blast off, we send you out. If you don't catch a fish that you think will win the first hour, you don't have to come back in. You don't have to come back in the second hour. You don't have to come back in the third hour. You can fish until you catch one that you feel like is going to win. And then you can come weigh that fish in that hour, and you can have that chance to win. You don't have to. It's just if you want to weigh. You're only allowed to weigh 1 per hour, though. So if you go in and you weigh one first 20 minutes of an hour, and you go back out and you catch another big fish, you have to wait till the following hour to weigh that fish in. So they'll allow you 1 fish per hour, okay? Oh, let's see here. Let's see what we got. Albert, what's going on? Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it, Albert. Matt, congrats on the win in Douglas. Central Maine here. Took a few eaters home through the ice this afternoon. Y'all still have ice up there. That's awesome. Down to less than a foot, but the edges were still good. Unfortunately, rain tonight. Yeah, that'll probably get some of it off there, won't it? Warm rain. Ty, what's going on? He said, dang, I'm late to the show. You ain't late, buddy. You're right on time. All right, so everybody's kind of alluded to the Douglas tournament. Let's jump into the Douglas tournament. Let's talk about that. So first and foremost, I don't know why I'm holding my coal system, but I am. Well, let's talk about that a second. If you have one of these Rapala tourney coal systems, okay, little tip. Who has one of these with the Rapala scale? Where's my scale at? I don't know where my scale is. Anyway, if you have one of these Rapala, and I've had to replace a few over the years, so these aren't really Rapalas, but if you have this coal system with these little coal balls and the little plastic clips from Rapala, there's a little bit of secret. There's a little secret to it, okay? Because you guys are probably looking at this going, what is on that coal system? These are drinking straws, okay? Bendy straws. You see the little bend in them? These are my kids' bendy straws. Look at that. So what I did, these have little ropes that go up through them, and they tie at the top of the ball. Okay. See that little rope right there? All right. So what I did, because these would get in the live well, and 7 fish would do this, and they'd swim around in that live well. And next thing you know, you'd open your live well, and all your ropes would be stuck together, and all your fish are sitting there floating together in one big ball. So what I did is I took drinking straws, and I untied the ball at the top. Okay. Well, no, I didn't. Told you a story. I untied it right here at this clip. All right. If you untie it at the ball, it's a pain in the butt to get it back through there. I did that the first time. But if you untie it right here at this clip, all right, slide that straw on there and then tie it back at this clip, they will not get tangled up. All right. So your fish will stay free of one another. They can swim around the live well and they will not get tangled up. So a little tip there on my cull system. If you guys have that same cull system, put some drinking straws on there. Get your kids bendy straws and slide them up the little nylon rope there. All right. So Douglas Lake, let's talk about it. So I told you guys last Wednesday my plan. Okay, my original plan was to go fish old school, right? And my original plan was to go up there and find planer board fish. Okay. Now, this plays right into tonight's topic of adjusting. All right. You have to be able to adjust and adapt to the conditions that you're dealt. All right. That's huge. I could have sat back and said, I told my viewers I was going up there and I was going to fish old school, which I was going to pull boards. Okay. And I got to go pull boards. So now I have to go pull boards. Well, I can tell you right now, it would not have been a very good day if I would have went up there and pulled boards. So I had not been on Douglas Lake since December of 2022. 2022, December, 3rd Saturday in December to be exact, is the last time that I was on Douglas Lake. Now, I went up there Friday, okay? I went up there Friday before the tournament. And I fished. Actually, I woke up Friday morning in the pea pouring rain and didn't want to get up and go. And I actually called Jimmy Pratt, and me and Jimmy talked for an hour and a half, and I'm sitting at the house drinking coffee and eating bacon. And I just told him, I was like, I'm not getting out in this. I'm not doing it. And he said, yeah, you don't need to. You just need to stay at home. Don't worry about coming up here. You know, he's on the lake riding around. So I thought, well, it's 34 degrees outside or whatever it was, 35, 36 that morning. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to wait, let it warm up a little bit, and then I'll go to the lake. So I waited until about 9 o'clock, maybe 9:30. And I got in the truck, hooked to the boat, and left. Okay. I got up there, put the boat in, put my rain suit on. And if you guys hadn't seen the post on Wired on Facebook, I got a golf umbrella, and I sat right here in this driver's seat. Okay. I sat right here in this driver's seat, and I held a golf umbrella over my head. I put that golf umbrella in my lap like this right here, and I just held it just with my hand right here in my lap. All right. And I just drove around with the golf umbrella over my head, idled around, and I just looked at this screen for 6 hours. I stared at this screen for 6 hours, okay? About 2:30, 3 o'clock, I guess, Jimmy called, Ray called. They all told me they were heading home. I knew everybody that was on the lake was off the lake, all right? So I thought, let me call Josh, have a conversation with him. So I called Josh, and I'm sitting there. I'm still idling around. Josh calls, or I called Josh, and we're talking about the day, talking about what I found, telling him kind of what I saw. And he said, well, are you sure they're crappie? And I said, yeah, they're crappie. And he said, well, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. I saw them on my side imaging. They're crappie. He said, well, you might want to catch a couple just to make sure. And I said, okay, fine. So I fished for about 5 minutes. I caught 3 fish, had 2 over 2 pounds. And I knew they were crappie at that point. I'm like, they're crappie. All right. So how did I find them? Why did I look there? What made me adjust? What made me adapt to what those fish were doing? Okay. So when I first got to the lake, first of all, before I went to the lake, let's talk about before I even went to the lake. Before I went to the lake that morning, I'm sitting there eating bacon and drinking coffee at the house. It raining outside. I really wasn't looking forward to going. So I pull up operating guide. All right. So TVA has an operating guide for our lakes. Okay. I'm going to show it to you right here. It's called TVA Lake Info. All right. And it's got all our lakes on it. And you can click, like I can click right here on Douglas Lake. And it tells me, all right, the observed data. If you look right there, you see observed data. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but it shows a whole bunch of numbers. 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. It's got reservoir elevation, okay? So I can look at my reservoir elevations, and I can tell is the lake going up or going down. Well, at 2 o'clock today, it was 957.42. And then at 9 o'clock p.m., it was 957.68. So it went up. It's been going up steady all day. All right. And the discharge amount has been going up all day. So at 4 p.m., they weren't discharging anything. Now at 9 p.m., they're discharging 88.15. Okay. So I got on here, and you can go to the operating guide on here. Another very good tool. Okay. You can go to the operating guide. Not sure why this shows Douglas, but it's not. All right, let's see here. All right, so here's our operating guide for Douglas Lake. All right, there's your operating guide. I hope you guys can see that okay. It's a little blurry on my end. But what I want you to pay the most attention to is where am I at? Right here. You see the blue line? The blue line is this year's observed data. So I'm going to zoom in on it, and I can't do it while I'm trying to talk to you guys. So, all right. Let's see if I can flip it this way, make it a little easier. No, I cannot. All right. So if you look at that observed data, that's got the blue line, or what kind of looks like a green line to you guys, which is up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down right here. Starts right here. That's over the course of a couple weeks there. That up-down trend looks like a dragon's back. Starts from January 16th through March the 2nd. Okay? It's January 16th through March the 2nd. Look at that. Woo, 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 woo. That's inconsistency. That's inconsistency right there at its finest. You see that green line? That green line below it was last year. See how much more consistent that green line is right there? See where that green line starts? See how consistent? It was up and down a little bit last year, but not much. It stayed very consistent right here. That blue line is like this. That's the lake levels for this year. They went up and down and up and down and up and down. I saw that, and I immediately knew, hey, those fish are not going to be shallow. Shallow water fish do not like this, because when they get shallow and it does this, they have to pull out. And then when it does this, they move back in. And then when it does that, they have to move back out. So when that constant inconsistency in water levels keeps those fish out, it keeps them out in the middle of the lake. It keeps them out in deeper water. It keeps them out off the bank. Okay? That is why you have people saying Douglas doesn't have fish in it this year. That is why it is not because that lake does not have fish in it. I saw 10,000 fish Friday driving around with my side imaging. I saw more. I bet you I saw over 10,000 fish on my side imaging that day in 6 hours. Okay? The anglers are saying there's no fish in that lake because they're not adapting and they're not adjusting to the way those fish are presenting themselves. All right? If you look at that, it's data that you guys have at your fingertips, okay? It's data that you have right here available to you to utilize, whoopsies, wrong one, to utilize where you can see the difference in pattern, the difference in water levels. Again, that blue line, that top line, it looks like a dragon's back, is this year. The green line is last year. See how much more consistent it was last year? Okay. Those fish are going to stay out in deeper water. They're going to stay out there where they're more consistent. The water is more consistent. It doesn't rise and low, raise and low, raise and low, rise and low, raise and low, lower, raise and lower, raise and lower. All right. So I saw that and I thought, all right, I know I was going to go old school, but that ain't setting up too well. All right. So when I get to the lake, I have an idea of where I need to look, right? So that started me down a path. That started me on what I'll call the well, let's face it, the winning track. All right. So I went up there and I found those fish in open water in the middle of the river, in the middle of the lake, just sitting there waiting on a consistent water pattern. They're not going to move up shallow again when it's just like this. And they're not. So I got up there. I started looking for fish. I found fish. All right. When I found fish, I found them in droves. I mean, I am not joking you. As a matter of fact, I have an image here that I'll show you guys that I actually sent Friday night to a buddy of mine because I couldn't believe what I found either. I mean, it was incredible how many fish that I found. So I'm going to show you guys two photos. First, I'm going to show you the photo that's not marked up, that doesn't have all the marks on it. And then I'm going to show you the photo that does have the marks on it. I think I still have them both. Let me check. Yeah. Okay. So here is the photo of my screen, my side imaging. Okay. Here's the photo without my markings on it, without showing you guys, kind of try to get it focused here, where those fish are. Okay. Now, you see that screen? Okay. Now I'm going to show you the screen where I've circled all the fish. All right. And this was constant. This was constant. Each one of those red circles is fish, guys. All right. That's just one screenshot. That's just one blurb of the screen. All right. That is, and actually some of those circles have two fish in them. So those little white dots, those are crappie. Now, they're not all crappie. There was some other fish mixed in there too. All right. They're not all crappie, but those were crappie. I mean, I knew right away when I see that is crappie. I mean, I'm telling you right now that those three circles right there, 110%. See those little white dots? Those little white dots inside those red circles are crappie, 110%. Okay? That's crappie on my side imaging. Everybody thinks you have to have live scope to go out there and look in open water. No, you can find those open water fish sitting right here in front of this screen. Now, this is a Lowrance HDS Gen 1. Okay, those pictures are coming off a Gen 1 unit from 1912. I love these units. Love them. All right. So I get out there. I start looking. I find this. Okay. That immediately told me what I was thinking with that trend of water was accurate. There was definitely fish sitting in open water, 110%, no doubt. That's where they were. All right. Now, that leads me down the road of, okay, but I'm fishing a tournament. So are these fish the larger class fish? Are they mixed in? Is there a smaller class in this section of the lake? Is there a bigger class in that section of the lake? Then I start trying to identify where those larger little white dots are. Okay, that meant to make a whole lot of sense. The larger little white dots. So then you start looking to try to figure out what areas of the lake do I need to utilize, or do I need to focus my energy on? So I went down, I went up. I kind of found the same thing everywhere I went. I found good fish down. I found good fish up. I found good fish right beside the boat ramp. I mean, in front of the boat ramp. I mean, I found fish everywhere I went. And then I thought, okay, let's go back and look in a creek. Now, I had been hearing from a lot of people that the bait was overwhelming on Douglas. There's so much bait. It's from the top to the bottom. I mean, it's literally a foot under the surface to the bottom of the lake. And I'm like, okay, let's stay away from that. Guys, when you get that much bait in an area, you hear from all these people, fish the bait, fish the bait, fish the bait, fish the bait, fish the bait. When you have that much bait, when it's from the surface to the floor and you can't even make out, your depth finder won't even read the bottom of the lake, there's so much bait, get out of that area. Do not fish in that area. How are you going to take a jig and that much bait and make a fish decide to pick that jig over 4 million bait fish? You can't do it. I'm here to tell you, you can't do it. When people tell you to fish the bait, they mean the little small bait balls. You might find, especially this time of year, you'll find some creeks that'll have a bait ball here and then 6 or 8 fish around it. And then you'll go 100 feet and there'll be a bait ball and you'll see 6 or 8 fish around it. Those little bait balls, but when you get the amount of bait that Douglas Lake has in it and all that bait gathers together, not only that, but there was a die-off happening, okay? There was a shad die-off that the seagulls were taking extreme advantage of. You cannot compete with that. You have to get away from that scenario. So I knew right away, I'm out of the creeks. I'm not even going in the creeks. Don't care to go in the creeks. My boat never crossed the mouth of a creek, okay? And we were more successful because of that. We were more successful because we were able to find those fish and look, you guys are going to say, well, yeah, your little picture there showed 30 foot of water. Yes. I found some in 17, 18 foot of water, found some in 30 foot of water. I found some in 50 foot of water. But the one thing that they all had in common were they were in that top 10% of the water column. Crappie were in the top, well, call it 20%. Crappie were in the top 20% of the water column, no matter where I went. And it was relative to the depth. So if I was in 30 feet, the top 20% was 6 feet. They would be somewhere from the surface to 6 foot down. If I was in 18 feet, that's 20% of that is 1.8 and 2. That's 2, 3, but from the surface to 4 feet. That's where they were. Surface to 4 feet, that's where the crappie were. If you go back and watch the video, there's a point in the video where Josh and I made a joke because we hadn't got one to bite that was deeper than 4 feet all day. If the fish was deeper than 4 feet, they wouldn't bite. Lo and behold, I pitched out on an 8-footer and he bit, but that was an anomaly for the day. The crappie were in the top 20% of the water column. Now, if I was out in 50 feet, found fish out in 50 feet, the fish would be somewhere in that top 10 feet of water column, okay? So they were in that top 20%. That's where they were. That's every crappie across the lake set up that way. It was really cool to see. Now, there were crappie moving around below that 20%, but those did not seem to be the active fish. You could follow them around and pitch to them and mess with them and eventually get them to bite. Something else that we would see during the day is those fish would dive and they'd sit down there at 20 feet and then they'd come back up. And then they'd dive and they'd sit down there at 20 feet and they'd move and then they'd come back up. What were those fish doing? Anybody got any guess? Anybody that I haven't talked to in last week, have a guess why those fish, they were sitting up there in that 4 or 5 foot range. They would dive. You could watch them on live scope. They'd dive down to about 15, 18, 20 feet. They'd move, and then they'd come back up, and they'd stop. Is there any guess why those fish did that? I'll give you a minute to comment on that, and then I'll tell you what they were doing. But those fish, like I said, they would sit there in that 4 to 6 foot range. They'd dive, they'd stop, they'd move, and then they'd come back up and they'd stop. Any ideas? Ronald Dills. Oxygen in the water churned up from the bait. Ronald Dills, they were feeding. Jeff Brenham, A. A what, buddy? How are you going to attack Watts Bar asking for a friend? Yeah, Watts Bar ain't happened yet. We're not going there. Yeah, we're not going there just yet. We'll have that conversation after Watts Bar. All right. So let's see if I can get one more comment. Jeff, water temps. Any other comments? Any other guesses? Real quick. Any other guesses? All right. So Ronald is probably the closest. They were feeding. Well, yes, they were feeding, but because my jig hit their back, no. They were looking for boyfriends. No. All right. So Ronald, they were feeding, and Matt T coming up under bait balls. Those are kind of the closest. So it's kind of both those together. All right. So what they were doing, okay, what these fish were doing is this bait was setting up in that top water, in that top 20% of the water column. Okay. Bait was setting up in that top 20%. And what those fish were doing is they would go down. Okay. They'd stop. They'd move. And then they'd come back up. And they'd stop. And they'd sit. It's just like us trying to catch crappie. Think about what I told you guys about pulling planer boards. You pull planer boards in shallow water to do what? Get the baits away from the boat, right? Because your boat does what? When your boat's traveling down the lake, what are you doing? You're spooking those crappie. Those shallow crappie, like these crappie were in that 4 to 5 foot range, at 3 to 5 foot range, you're spooking those crappie with your boat. Well, those crappie, if they were to sit up there in 4 foot and just move around, they'd be spooking that bait before they get to it, because that bait can feel them coming with their lateral line, right? Bait has lateral line just like fish has lateral line. So that bait can feel that fish coming through the water. So what those fish were doing is they were using the depth to ambush. They would go down, they would level out, they'd move, okay? So they could move without being felt or seen. They were using that as their ambush, as their shade or their structure. They were using the depth instead of using a dock pole or a brush pile or, a rock or whatever. So those fish would actually move down. They'd stop. They'd move. Then they'd pop back up and they'd stop. What they would do is they were moving. Then they were coming and they would come back up super slow. They'd move down. They'd move over. And then they'd rise back up real slow. And they'd stop. What they're doing is they're coming back up looking for bait. Okay? If they find bait, they run out, grab a bait fish. They might go move back down, move to the next little spot, come back up, look for bait. They don't see anything. They might move back down. They may sit there for a minute too. So they may sit there for a second. A lot of those fish that you see that all these guys say, well, I'm looking, a crappie doesn't move on the screen. Yeah, that's true. But when you find them in that feeding pattern like that, they're going to move. Those fish are going to move. I can't tell you how many fish that Josh and I caught that were moving. We would follow them, okay? We followed one. That's another point in the show where I said, hey, we followed that fish for 50 or 100 yards or whatever it was. We chased that fish. It stopped finally, and we caught it. And it was constantly down, up, down, up, down, up. And we finally caught that fish. It was crappie. And we followed it the entire time. It never left the live scope screen. So those fish move, okay? Don't always think that a blob on your screen because it's moving is a white bass or a bass or a stripe or whatever. Crappie move. They have those same tendencies as some of those other fish. Everybody says, well, how do you know it's a crappie then? A lot of times that's the hard part about fishing open water. Okay, that's the tough part about identifying those fish. Sometimes, look, I don't know if I'm a professional crappie fisherman or not. I mean, I make money crappie fishing. Does that make me a professional? Who the heck knows? But as a quote unquote professional crappie fisherman, I'm here to tell you, if anybody tells you they can look at their screen and absolutely 110% identify a crappie every single time that it pops up on their screen, they are telling you a lie. That is a lie from the pit of hell, and I don't care if anybody shares that with anybody that calls himself a professional crappie fisherman, because I'm telling you right now, I've seen every professional crappie fisherman I know catch something other than a crappie on a video. So if they're sitting up there watching their screen and they catch a white bass and throw it back, or they catch a catfish and throw it back, or then why'd they catch it? If they knew it wasn't a crappie, then why'd they even bring it in a boat? They're there to crappie fish. Why did you catch? I mean, you watch these tournaments, right? And these guys are catching stripe, they're catching bass, they're catching catfish, they're catching all these different fish. Well, if anybody's good enough to read that thing and tell me exactly 110%, I know that's a crappie or a bass or a stripe or a catfish or any other fish. Why are they catching fish other than crappie? I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, there's a lot of times that people are going to tell you things that that's just lip music, all right? Nobody can sit up there on that screen and tell you 100%. One of the guys that I know is one of the best in East Tennessee, Joel Nash, cannot tell me and will not tell you guys. He won't tell you guys that he can tell you every single fish that's a crappie or not. He can't. I can't. Nobody can. I'm here to tell you. Okay? So you got to take everything you hear with a grain of salt. And I'm going to get off my soapbox. But where was I going with that? Those fish were going down and coming up. And they'd go down, they'd move, they'd come up, and they'd sit there and look for bait. So they're utilizing the depth as their ambush point or their travel corridor so that they don't get busted, so that they can feed. Okay. It was really cool to see. And there was a couple times where I literally casted to one fish and I'm reeling the jig by him, and my jig was still out past him a little bit, hadn't got to him yet. And he darts towards the boat. And you saw this little bitty tiny orange blip that moved, and he wham. I said, "Did you see that?" I said, "He just hit a shad right here in front of us. Did you see that?" Josh goes, "Yeah, I did. What was that fish doing?" I said, "He just ate a shad right here in front of us." And it clicked. That's why they're going down and up and down and up and down and up. Because when they go down, they move, they don't get noticed or felt, then they pop back up and they're looking for shad. They're looking for bait fish. So it's really, really cool to see. Okay. And this stuff that I'm still learning. I didn't see that and I automatically know what it was. Now, I've seen that before. I saw it on Watts Bar a couple years ago, and I suspected that's what it was when it was happening on Watts Bar, because when I found it on Watts Bar doing that, I was right around some bait balls. I was right around schools of fish at that time. It was like 6-8 fish in a school, and that whole school would move over 20 feet or 30 feet and pop back up. So I suspected that's what they were doing at that point, but this really confirmed it when I sit there and watched that all day. I thought, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. So we learn stuff. I learn stuff every day. Look, right here, Joel, tell you the truth. Look, sometimes drum are the worst to look like a crappie. Absolutely. It depends on how these fish are setting up and you're looking at them. I mean, if there's a crappie that's facing right at that camera right here and you look at him with your live scope, he's going to look about that big. But if that fish goes like that to your live scope, he's going to look about that big. Okay? There's so many scenarios that play out on that dang play box up there. Nobody in their right mind can tell you, they absolutely 110% can tell you every species of every fish that comes across that screen. It's not possible, guys. Not possible. Don't try to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You're gonna throw at fish that aren't crappie. You're gonna throw at fish that won't bite. You're going to throw at fish that really aren't even fish. You might get a big skipjack swim through or a big old shad swim through. I mean, not crappie. It's a fish, obviously. They're all fish in the water. But you're going to throw at stuff that has absolutely that's just a waste of time is all it is. And you're going to make casts to fish that you think you're looking at that fish, and you make a cast and you see your jig fall, And the next thing you know is, well, your jig's a little ghost-like, but the fish is really bright. And you bring it by and that fish doesn't react. Well, that's because you didn't get close enough. All right. You've got to line that fish up, line that cast up, and be perfect with that cast. All right. But you're not going to be perfect with identifying fish off that play box. You're not going to do it. Nobody is. Okay. So, day of the tournament. Let's talk day of the tournament. So, day of the tournament, I told Josh, I said, hey, I've got a plan. I know what we're going to do. We're going to hit our first spot, and then we're going to move a couple times. There's several different spots I want to try during the day, but we're going to go to our first spot. We're going to try to get a good limit, and then we're going to move around, try to find bigger fish. So we get out there, we sit down, we put the live scopes down. We're waiting on time to start because we couldn't start fishing until 8 o'clock. So we start fishing, okay? Immediately we're on fish. I mean, as soon as we put the boat down, put the live scopes down, Josh turns his pole and he's like, good Lord. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to the show. All right. Welcome to the show. And he's like, there's fish everywhere. And I was like, yeah, everywhere. And we're going to have fun. It's going to be a fun day. We caught over 100 fish, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. So we're sitting there. We get ready to start. And on our way out of the ramp that morning, before we even started, let me back up. Before we even started, I'm running up lake. I told Josh, I said, hey, we don't have a far run, 3-4 minutes tops. He says, all right. 10, 12 minutes into the run, he leans over. He's like, I thought you said we're not going far. He's like, let's go, you know. I said, well, I changed my mind. And he said, you sure? I said, I'm sure. Okay. I literally changed my mind from the time I hit that key, okay, to the time I put this boat on plane. I changed my mind. And I do that a lot. And you guys, I can't teach this, okay? It's just a feeling. It's just a gut feeling that I have. It's just I fish when I try to think my way through everything. As you guys can tell, I try to absolutely think my way through everything before I ever get to the lake. Then I pre-fish. Then I try to think about it again because I want to look at my scenarios, my situations, my flows, my lake levels, everything. I want to think about that again before tournament day. So I come home that night, I look at it again. Okay. But then at tournament day, when I show up to fish and I hit that key, that's start. That's for me. That's not start from the motor. That's start for me. I hit that key, it's on. And if I had an idea in my mind of what I was going to do, and my mind goes, yeah, you still need to do that, but you need to go over here and do it. I'm going over there and doing it. I fish on field. I've always been that way. I've always fished on field. And I try to make the best educated decision that I can and then fish on field. Okay. So he says, are you sure? I said, I'm sure. Okay. He says, all right, let's go. So we went on up. We fished. We caught about 10.5 pounds by 11 o'clock. Okay. Had about 10.5 pounds in the boat. And then I said, hey, we started catching some smaller fish. And once we started catching some smaller fish, because at that point, we'd done nothing but catch keeper fish. I mean, we threw back, I bet we threw back 30 fish that were between 1.3 and 1.5. Just great, solid keeper crappie. I mean, and we caught a lot of little fish too, but we were casting to those bigger fish. We were actually identifying those larger fish. Okay, so then we moved back. I said, hey, let's move down. Let's get some deeper water. Let's see if we can't find a few larger fish. So we moved, come back down, went to a little spot where it was deeper. There wasn't as many fish. There were still a bunch of fish. It wasn't as many, but the fish we found were larger. So we were able to stay there and cull up. And then I had one other area that I wanted to fish, but I had a feeling that some of the other guys in the tournament were going to go there because I kind of tried to help them out a little bit. I said, hey, you know where you saw me last year fishing? And he was like, yeah. And I said, well, I wouldn't be terribly upset if you fished that area. And he's like, oh, okay. So I was kind of hoping that would help those guys out. I didn't necessarily give them any GPS coordinates. I just kind of said, hey, I wouldn't be mad at you if you went and fished in that area that I was in last year where you saw me, because they were struggling a little bit and I was trying to help. That's what it's all about. Okay. That's what a good club is all about, is everybody being successful throughout the day, not just one person. All right. So, we're out there fishing we won the tournament, won $270. It's not like it's not like we're getting rich off fishing these tournaments. It's very, very low payouts, and entry fees are $40 a boat for two people. It's $20 a person. We're not breaking the bank by any means. We're not retiring off crappie tournaments, local club tournaments, but it's just fun to get out there, have that little bit of competition, fish against some really tight competitions, some really good anglers. But we're there to help, and we're there to help everybody become better, right? Become better anglers. So we stayed in that second area the rest of the day, called up, had a live scope battery die on us, ended up putting both live scopes on one battery. And then the battery that died is literally 6 years old. I have an Amped Outdoors battery, which is over here. Yeah, there you go, Amped Outdoors. Had an Amped Outdoors battery that's literally 6 years old that made it 7 hours and then died. It's getting weaker. And I actually retired that battery, and now it's in my son's big wheel. So we wired his big wheel up so it'd run that lithium battery, and now he's running that lithium in his big wheel. So, and I ordered 2 more. So I got 2 more 30 amp hour lithiums on the way, so that I have 3 in my boat, so that I have a spare. But that battery's just getting weak. I mean, they generally last a 30 amp hour on a 12-inch screen, and a 34 transducer and black box generally lasts 9.5 hours on a full charge. So an 8-hour tournament, no problem. And, that battery's just 6 years old. It's just getting wore out. So, but we put both. Josh actually said, well, we got a pretty decent bag. Do you just want to call it and go set up for the weigh-in? I said, no. I said, we got an hour left to fish. Let's just put them on one and try to catch another fish. Maybe we'll get lucky, catch another coal fish. Well, we did. So we culled a 140 up to a 165, quarter of a pound, and that pretty much put us over the top. I mean, we had 1179, and the closest person, I think, to us was 1153, second place, or 1153, something like that, which is about a quarter of a pound. So that last coal fish that we caught meant a lot, and typically they do, especially because I told Josh, I said, look, we don't have enough. We don't have enough. I feel like we have a good bag. We'll finish up there somewhere in the money maybe, but I don't think we have enough. There's a lot of good anglers out here, and there's a lot of good fish out here to be caught, and they're setting up so easy to catch that, there'll be a lot of guys catch a lot of good fish, and they did. There's a lot of guys that caught a lot of good fish. So honored, blessed to fish that event and do well and win that event, but especially Douglas is normally not my best lake. It's a lake that I can go catch fish on pretty much anytime I want to go up there, but it's not my best lake. And it's, one of those that I kind of look at every year and go, what am I going to do? I got to figure something out. So, I can go catch fish, but I don't always fare all that well in Douglas. And I'm blessed and honored to win that, especially against such tough competition. So, let's talk about setup. Let's talk about how we did it. ACC crappie stick. I used a 6.5 footer. Okay, that is a 6.5 foot one piece. I did use the one piece rod this time. Okay, it's a 6.6 one piece in the medium fast action. I don't have a preference, one piece or two piece. The thing I like more about the one piece than the two piece is the reel seat. I do like the reel seat more because it doesn't have a dip in it, where the two piece has more of a dip in it. This is more of a smooth grip where it's not got any undulation to it. So your hand's really solid on that grip. So, I mean, I'll fish with the two piece. I'll fish with the one. As far as the rod is concerned, I don't feel like it has any more or any less backbone or any more or less sensitivity or anything like that. I feel like the blanks are pretty much the same, except for one's a solid rod and one's two pieces. But I don't see a difference for me in performance versus a one versus a two piece. Really, it's just the way the rod's made or set up, with the reel seat and such. So, all right, let's talk about bait, or let's talk about reel. I get asked a lot about the reel. That is a Fluger Try-On size 25, which you guys know is my go-to. I have used the Bonehead reel recently, and I like it, but I can't get away from my Fluger. The gear ratio and everything on my flugers it's just perfect. It's just a great, perfect setup. And I'm not sponsored by Fluger. I don't have any deals with Fluger. I pay for these just like you guys do. I buy them right from Fleet Mills Farm is who I buy them from. Oh, no, it's not. Glenn's Navy Store is who I buy my from. I found that they have the cheapest Fluger try-on size 25. Glenn's Navy Store online. You can tell them Wired sent you. They won't know who you're talking about. I promise. They won't have a clue. They'll be like, Wired who? They'd be like, we don't know that dude. You can be like Matt Zenas. He's bought like every Fluger try-on probably you've ever sold. And they'll be like, oh, we know that dude. He buys like 10 at a time. And they're like, yeah, that's him. But no, I mean, I buy them just like you guys do. And I just love them. The bezel size is perfect for me. And the gear ratio, the speed of bringing that retrieve in is just perfect for me. That's just what I like. And Bonehead tackle, B-Power braid. All right, that's the orange B-Power braid right there, 12-pound test, Bonehead tackle braid, B-Power braid, tied to a Vicious. I did tie a fluorocarbon leader, okay? So I've got a Vicious fluorocarbon 8-pound leader attached to that. I got asked that question actually yesterday, I think it was. Do I tie a leader to braid? Well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This one has about a 4-foot leader on it. Okay. It's got about a 4-foot leader, and it is, like I said, 100% clear fluorocarbon, which you guys can't even hardly see it right now. It's there. But clear fluorocarbon leader, 8-pound test, tied to 12-pound bonehead tackle braid. All right, now let's talk about the business end. As a matter of fact, we're going to take this off the line because, as you guys know, right back here over my shoulder, was it last year or the first of this year? How many's back there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So the last tournament last year, I've won. No, that's right. Two for this year, 2 for last year. So sometime last year, whenever it was, I started deciding I was going to keep my baits that I won a tournament with, and I was going to hang them back here on the wall. So that bait, we're going to hang back here on the wall and retire it. It's done its job. It's worked as hard as it's going to work. And we're going to hang her back there on the wall. Now, I also have another one to hang on the wall, which I'm going to show you here in a minute from the Teleco tournament from where we pulled planer boards. But let's talk about Douglas. Let's keep it on Douglas for right now. So this is a white and chartreuse bonehead tackle stump bug. That is the bonehead tackle stump bug that we caught our fish on. As you can tell, it is all tore up. That bonehead tackle stump bug right there, I don't know how many fish it caught, but it caught a bunch. And it's been taken off this hook and run back on this hook and taken off this hook and run back on this hook. I don't know how many times, but it is still getting it, okay? That is a white lightning bonehead tackle stump bug. That is what we used all day long to catch our fish. Now, let's talk about the jig head. It's a 16th ounce jig head, okay? We'll run it back on there in a minute. A 16th ounce jig head from Mr. Curtis Hobbs at Lightwire Hooks. And as you guys can see, it's got a little holographic eye on it, okay? A little holographic eye there. I'm trying to get it in focus. All right. But as you can see, that's actually painted in silver flake. So it's silver flake, okay? Why silver flake? All right. This is a jig head that I don't show many people. I showed Josh. Josh didn't even see it until the morning of the tournament. And I think he ended up fishing with one. I gave him one, I think, or maybe I gave him the gold one. I have a gold one as well. But it is silver metal flake, okay? Pure silver flake. It's just like silver sparkle. That's all it is. Silver glitter. The whole head, silver glitter. Well, why? Why silver flake? Why metal flake? Why just a sparkled head? It's literally like he took clear and just dipped it in sparkle. All right. Well, it's real simple. With all the bait fish, okay, and the shad die off, what color is shad? What color bait fish? They're silver. So I wanted some silver flash. I wanted that bait to have some flash to it, but I didn't want a lot of flash. I wanted just enough to get their attention, just enough for those fish to go, wait a minute, what was that? Well, that's why I used the silver head. And it worked. Obviously, we caught plenty of fish on it. So there you go. We're going to retire this one. We're going to hang her back there on the wall, right back there behind me, right over one of these shoulders right there. We're going to hang her right up there under bonehead tackle with all my other jigs. And then we're also going to hang the baits that we won Teleco with. So we pulled jigs on Teleco. So we actually have two because we pulled planer boards, right? So this was my front jig. This was my back jig. Front jig was a black and chartreuse Charlie Brewer slider. All right. And the back jig was a black, blue, and chartreuse Southern Pro hot grub right there with silver flake in the tail. Okay. So front jig is on an unpainted jig head. Back jig is on a chartreuse jig head. All right. So we're going to hang those back up there too. We're going to hang those together just like that because, hey, that's what we used. We used a double jig rig, right? And pulled planer boards. So we'll hang those back up there. I think it's neat. We'll see how many we can get back there throughout the years. Hopefully we get a bunch of them. And if we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. But the idea and the thing I want you guys to think about was I told you last Wednesday I was going to go up there and fish old school. I was going to go up there and fish with planer boards. That's what my plan was in my mind at that time. It was that time of year. I could go up there and I could find those fish shallow. Well, we found them shallow, but not in an area where we could catch them with planer boards. We needed to snipe those fish, okay? We need to get out there and identify those larger fish in those schools and catch those larger fish. Another reason that we couldn't use planer boards is because we'd had a lot of rain that week. We had a lot of rain leading up to the tournament and Friday, and it muddied that water up a little bit. So there was a little bit of stain to the water. And I don't like pulling boards in a lot of stained water because those fish don't have time to see that bait and react to it. You really have to get it very close to them to get them to react to that bait. So, adapt, change, adjust, whatever word you want to use, whatever adjective you want to use for it. You have to adjust to the fish when you go to the lake. That's not just tournament fishing. That's everyday fishing. When you go out there and you say, okay, I want to go shoot docks today. Well, if you go out there, guys, and you start shooting docks and you're not catching fish, why are you not catching fish? Go do something else. Go find you a brush pile. Go find you a laydown. Go find you a stump. Go do something different. Go find you a bridge piling. Go find you do something different. Adjust, adapt. Don't just expect those fish to be where you want them to be so that you can catch them the way you want to catch them. You have to fish the way the crappie set up for you, okay? Because they're not just going to set up the way you want every time you go to the lake. Let's see what we got here. Go back and see if you guys have some questions. Is there a current on Douglas? Yes, there is current on Douglas if they're pulling water. If they're pulling water at the dam, then yes, there is current. Let's see here. Matt, do you fish bridge pylons this time of year? If so, how do you approach it? I don't fish bridge pylons. No. I have sworn off bridge pilings since I started crappie fishing. If I have to sit on a bridge piling and catch them, that's just one thing that it's mental for me, I think. I just don't want to be a bridge fisherman. I want to find those areas of hidden structure, of stuff that people aren't normally fishing. But if I had to, yes, I would. How I would approach it. Have I done it before? Yes. How do I approach it? Typically from the down current side. Okay. I'll typically fish the down current side first. If those fish are extremely, extremely active, okay, then they will sit on that up current side and wait on fish to be swept down to them. But most of the time it's the down current side, okay, that I fish. And I'll fish that down current side. If I don't get bit, I'll move to the next one. Again, fish that down current side. But that's just how I approach them. Alex, is that what happened to you when you caught the big catfish a while back trying to live scope? Not necessarily. No, actually, it didn't. I saw a crappie on the brush pile, and I was fishing for that fish, and I was fishing, and I saw this fish. I saw that catfish. I was fishing for that crappie, and he didn't bite, and I went to pull it away from that crappie, and there was a stump there. The crappie was on the far side of the stump, and then I pulled that jig over the stump, and when it come to the other side of the stump and I was getting ready to reel it back into the boat, that fish came out from under the front side of the stump closest to me and whacked it. So that fish I was not trying to catch. That fish just happened to pop out of a stump and eat my jig. And I was like, well, okie dokie then. But it was a very fun fight. Kenny Evans, crappie being everywhere and in top 20% depth, could you have caught them on pulling boards? Well, I answered that question for you, I think, Kenny. No, the answer is no. Reason being is because the water was stained. You really can't be very productive in that stained water pulling boards. You can still catch a few, but you can't load the boat down like you could if it was clear where those fish can see. The fish in that stained water are utilizing their lateral line and feeling that bait more than they are so seeing that bait. And once they feel it, then they can pinpoint it, right? So when you're coming through there with planer boards, if you don't get that jig close enough to that fish going 0.8 to 1 mile an hour, you guys might not think 0.8 to 1 mile an hour is moving, but I'm here to tell you 0.8 to 1 mile an hour is moving. If you don't think so, go ahead and take you a 6.5 foot rod, cast it out in front of your live scope, and sit there and start reeling and see how fast that jig moves. That jig moves, son. I mean, there's no doubt that jig moves. And 0.8 to 1 mile an hour is pretty well moving. For that fish to have that availability to see it, decide to bite it, and move on it and strike it, no, I don't want cloudy, dingy water to pull boards. And also, when you're pulling boards in that deep of water, what happens in shallow water, okay, stick with me. In shallow water, when you're pulling your boards, you've got a flat that's 4 or 5 foot, 6 foot, okay? If you're pulling your boards with your boat and you're spooking fish and they're running off to the sides, they can run off to the sides, but they can't dive to 30 feet. In that shallow water, when you're moving through there and you're spooking fish, or in the deep water, in that deep water, like we were fishing 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 foot on Douglas, if you're going through there and there's fish in 2 to 4 foot of water and you're spooking those fish, they're not going out, they're going down. So you don't have that availability to kind of trap those fish. And if you're out in the middle of the dang lake with from bank to bank is 1.5 miles, there's a lot of room for those fish to get out of your way. There's a lot of room. But if you're in the back of a creek in a pocket and you're pulling boards and those fish are just moving 30 feet, you're catching those fish on your boards. So no, to answer your question, I couldn't have pulled boards. There was people up there trolling, and we watched a guy troll by us a buttload of times, and we never saw him catch a fish. And there was 10,000 fish in there. I mean, there was well, in that area, probably 2,000, but still, there was thousands of fish in that area, and they never caught one that we saw. They may have caught some later in the day, but when we never saw them catch one. Of course, we weren't watching them all every minute either, but when they were in front of us and we were seeing them, we didn't see them catch a fish. So to answer your question, no, you couldn't have pulled boards in that situation because there's too much. The volume of water that they have to get away from you and your boards in is just too much. It's too vast, and you just can't do it. George said, meanwhile, I was on the other end of the lake trying to get a Coke bottle tied to a tree limb to bite. That's pretty good. I think that's why Ray Pratt said he was going to start tying Coke bottles to all his brush piles. That way you guys get on them and stay there for an hour trying to get a Coke bottle to bite. That is why I tell you guys, if you're not on active fish, leave. If you make 3 casts of that fish and you know there's 3 solid casts and that fish never reacts, never moves, leave. Get out of there. Matt, what do you think of the AMP 100 amp hour Wi-Fi setup? It's a great setup. It's expensive, but it's a great setup for sure. Versatility is key. I'm seeing whatever it takes to get fish in the boat. We have to practice and learn all techniques, and that's it. I mean, you need to have multiple techniques at your disposal. If you're a one-trick pony, they're going to book you in 10 shows a year because you're a one-trick pony. But if you're a 10-trick pony, you're going to get booked in 100 shows a year because they can get you to do multiple things, right? So you need to be versatile. You need to be able to adjust. You need to be able to change, adapt to what those fish allow you. It's not about us. It's not about what we want to do. It's not about how we want to catch them. Sometimes it is, because sometimes they'll set up in multiple ways. Sometimes they'll set up on brush. They'll set up on docks. They'll set up in the trolling pattern. They'll set up all on the same day in the same lake. Okay? But you have to be versatile. You have to have those different techniques at your disposal. Because on the days like Douglas, I'm here to tell you, we saw brush while we were fishing out in that open water. We come across brush piles, probably a dozen. And I never saw a fish on one. Never saw a fish on one all day. Josh will tell you, we didn't see a fish on brush all day. But they were sitting out there in open water by the droves, okay, by the flocks. So, you just got to be able to adapt. That's what this is about. That's what this show is about, is be a versatile angler. Have multiple techniques at your disposal and be able to identify when you need to change. If something's not working, please don't keep doing it. Change, move, find that new pattern. There's always a pattern on every lake at any given time. And a lot of times there's multiples. A lot of times there's 2 good patterns on each lake at any given time. Now, Douglas, now there's a lot of fish caught off docks on Douglas. There were some fish caught off docks. There's just not that many docks on Douglas this time of year. But there were some fish caught on docks. So maybe that was your other pattern for the day. Open water, middle of the Daggum River Channel, and docks. So, you'll typically find fish in multiple patterns, but you've got to change. You got to be able to adapt, and you got to be able to just pattern those fish and be able to go out there and leave the I want to do this at home. All right. You can't say, well, I don't care what they're doing. I'm pulling planer boards. Well, yeah, that's cool when I got my kid with me because we can't do a whole lot. If you got a 6-year-old in a boat, you kind of got to troll or some form of trolling or slip floating or something because, it's hard to get them to cast to an open water fish on the live scope screen. But, if you have the ability to move and you have the ability to do something different, do it. Let's see. Now let's talk about who won the crappie jigs. Let's talk about who won those, who guessed closest. I've got it right here. 3 packs of bonehead tackle jigs. The winner of that was 1179 was the official weight that we won with, was 1179. And right here, Mr. Dave Williams guessed 1178. 1178. He was 1/100th off of the actual weight. 1178. So Mr. Dave Williams wins those 3 packs of bonehead tackle jigs. Message me on Facebook, Dave, or get my number from Perry because I know you're friends with Perry, and I'll get you hooked up with some jigs of your choice on colors there. I pretty much have them all behind me. But we'll get you those, and congratulations on that. 1178. Now, there was a bonus for line if you guessed the correct winner, and he did not guess the correct winner. He did guess a winner, but I won't throw any names out there for that. But he guessed a winner that wasn't me, and I told some people, I said, we're gonna have a conversation on the live about all these people that that didn't think that I would be able to win a tournament on Douglas, I was pretty eye-opening. There was a lot of names thrown around that weren't mine, and I was like, man, I'm starting to get offended. I'm getting in my offended box at the moment. I'm like, I got to quit asking people these questions. Good Lord. It was pretty funny. Shane, can you push planer boards? You can. Yeah, you can push them. I mean, you can push them out of the front of the boat. The thing is they're going to be, by the time you let the line out on them, Shane, they're going to be more middle of the boat than they are front of the boat. So, I mean, you've got to let out enough line that you can get those boards away from the boat. So they're going to be behind you a little bit. But, yeah, absolutely, you can push them. You can push them out of the front. No big deal. Dave, thanks, Matt. I knew the weight will be big for the tournament. Yep, you got it close. No doubt, you got it close. Bradley Baker, very good question. Live scope on a pole or trolling motor? 100% pole. 100%. 100% pole. For me, it's a pole. Trolling motor, no way. 100% on a pole. You know, there's a lot of people that say you can't catch open water fish. You can't chase open water fish. You can't do this. You can't do that. Bull crap. I just proved it. We went out there and fished for an entire day and had 1179 fishing with poles and live scope. I mean, you can do it. It's not hard. They just don't. Those people just don't do it, so they tell you that's not the best way to do it. Well, I've done it both ways. I've done it on a trolling motor, and I've done it on a pole. For me, it's a pole. Pole's easiest. Because another thing you see, these guys, they're like, hey, you know, if you got to get that trolling motor right on that fish and chase that fish and find that fish, but don't get too close to that fish. Well, I can keep that fish off to the side of the boat. I keep that fish over here, and I can move up beside the fish on this side and fish directly out the side of my boat, okay, and catch that fish. I don't have to have that fish directly in front of me. I can take that fish and put him off the side of my boat, and then I can get up there level with him, and I can make good casts to him, and I can sit there. I can even put spot lock on if I want, and that spot lock can sit there and blow wake and do whatever it wants to do, and I don't have to worry about it waking that fish and scaring that fish off. So for me, it's a pole. I prefer to have a pole. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Like I said, please don't be afraid to adjust. Don't be afraid to adapt to what those fish are doing that given day or that week or that month or that, you know, whatever. Make sure you keep an open mind and always try new things. There is no wrong way to catch crappie. Okay. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. As long as you're out there and you're sticking fish and you're ripping lips, you're a crappie fisherman. All right. So, you know, learn these new techniques, get hooked up with some good people, find you a good club to fish in, and you'll benefit. You'll grow as a crappie fisherman. Okay. So I appreciate y'all as always. God bless. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for all the congrats and for all the good wishes and everything on the tournament. I appreciate it very much. Thank y'all for watching the videos. We'll have another one coming out for you this week, and then a live next Wednesday night, same time, same place. As always, I wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you very much. God bless. We'll see you on the next one.